cosmic blast straight to the heart of England comes Rock City Symphony, the new album from the UK power trio Blitz. Full of impact, with a complete running narrative throughout, Rock City Symphony is an anthem-laden slice of pure rock perfection that takes you to the furthest ends of the cosmos. The album is accompanied by a stunning, autographed, full-color comic book illustrated by legendary artist Dave Hurst. That comes signed by himself and the band. I mean, damn, this is epic. So buckle up, true rock believers, and welcome one and all to the Rock City Symphony.
My Rock City Symphony. When this world brings me to my knees, you're the radio inside of me. My Rock City
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are back. It's time to get ROCKtober continuing. We're going to rock it up with Christian Shields today. And he's got some stuff that he's bringing out. He's got some brand new music that's coming out. And let's talk with him a little bit about that.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
So as you can see, as I couldn't read on my screen, this gentleman is rocking up the ranks with his band, Christian Shields Band. And I love your logo, man. I dig it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a combination between, I would say, Kiss and Star Wars.
I would say you're absolutely right. Being a graphic designer and a dork like that as I am, I would be right on mark with that. There seems to be something
the idea
else that's
for
in
it,
there, too.
not to interrupt you, Stu, but the idea for it was definitely to do something that looks very classic rock. I'm not necessarily a big comic book fan, but a lot of those bands from back then, they were fans of like all that, sci-fi comic book stuff. So it's kind of my tipping of the hat to the old style of the 70s.
Well, yeah, and you saw, I mean, the promo I just played for Blitz that's coming out next month. They are big comic book fans, and there's a good area for that still within music. And I think it's, when you have things like what's the movie that's really big right now with the Japanese pop, the K-pop thing, it's like all that stuff, and it's all animated, and it's.
Yeah, I think you're talking about K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know much about it.
I don't know. I don't know much about it either. I just know that it's doing pretty well up against a lot of other things that have been huge budget movies because they don't know how to write them anymore. But
yeah, I don't really watch much TV or movies. I'm more of a guy. I like to read a lot. That's mostly what I do. But if something's interesting, I will definitely watch it. But no, I haven't done a deep dive into the Demon Hunters or K-pop in general. But I guess if enough people start asking me about it, I might have to, so I can actually have an educated opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you got Rob Halford that was out there doing some stuff with, what is it, Baby Metal? Is that what the band is called? The Japanese.
Yeah, I've heard of Baby Metal. I know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a video out there of Rob Halford on stage with them. Doing Breaking the Law, I think.
I think I've seen that actually, but that's from a while ago, isn't it?
It was, yeah. So it's not like yesterday. No, he's been, of course, with those metal bands and whatnot. Japan's a huge market for them, like Scorpions and Kiss and a lot of those classics. Just amazing stuff. So let's get started with this. This is your new single. Fall Like Rain. Mm-hmm. And it's a great tune, dude. I dig it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then what is this? Where does this step off from your album? This is Rock and Roll. This is a great record too. I've been enjoying it. I've been listening to it last night and this morning, and there's lots of cool influences there.
Well, This is Rock and Roll was done during the pre-COVID era, and then basically for 2 years everything got put on pause. So I wanted to give it proper promotion, so we really hit the ground hard for it for 2022, 23, 24, and even at the beginning of this year. And then, Fall Like Rain was recorded last year. But with the way that people consume music now, unless you're an established artist or a legacy band, you can still sell records, but like for newer artists to get people on board, it's easier to just promote singles. And then I'm not saying I would never do an album again, but I think for right now, I think the step is just do singles from now on, because you don't necessarily have to tour in support of an album anymore. They're not mutually exclusive because of the internet. Everything's relevant at all times. So to me, people add singles to playlists. They don't add albums. And if you look at the numbers, people don't necessarily listen through an album all in one sitting. No offense to any of the old heads, but everybody always goes, well, I still buy records. And it's like, great, I'm glad you do. And that's great. And all that stuff. But, I like to say, you either evolve or you die. So you got to get with the times and all that stuff, but if you do have the fan base for it, and if it makes sense, then, obviously I think records would be the way to go. Not to make a long answer to your question.
No, that's a perfect answer. I really appreciate you mentioning all of that, because those are things that people don't always think about. Sometimes I don't think about that way. I'm the last of the boomers. So it's, when you think about it, I'm like, I maybe to this day, maybe this is when I have a better, fuller understanding of what you're talking about, because I speak a lot about musicians and songwriters being, forget the music industry. If it doesn't care about you, and it maybe never did, and they're only caring about the numbers, maybe it's about time that all of those people become the industry of music, is what I keep saying. I've been preaching that since I started this channel, and that's where the term lies. It's about being the industry of music and making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tools available to artists now, where you can do things independently and all that stuff. Sure, major labels and even some indie labels and stuff, they can help you open some doors that you might not be able to, because they have connections and all that stuff. Right. I always just say this. I think people just, and this is a little bit of projection here, but I think people just need to do what makes sense for them. You need to do what makes sense for your brand, for your business. You get some artsy fartsy types that'll always be like, oh, music is just for the art, man. You're not doing it to make money and all that stuff. But it's like, well, when you're a professional musician like I am, you that's how you make money. That's how you make a living. And it's also my business. So right. I have to think of and I have to do what I think are the best things to move everything forward and what makes the most sense. And also what isn't going to cost me a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. Because that is true. It's even I do a cover band here in town, and there's some people are like, well, I don't care about the money, and you're like, well, okay, that's cute and all, I get that, but if it's part of what I'm counting on for money and stuff, then well, I kind of do, and it's time away from my family too. So.
Yeah, and I just think it might come down to it's a little bit of self-aggrandizing or patting yourself on the back, or you call it virtue signaling or whatever. And it's like, look, it's like, just be honest. You don't have to. It's no secret. People aren't going to be mad at you for making money.
Right.
And then those that are, they're just jealous because they can't make money doing what you're doing.
Well, and that's a big part of it too. There's a lot of that, where those who can't complain about those who can.
Well, it goes back to my earlier statement about projection. So
you're absolutely right.
There we go.
Absolutely right. So what? Tell me about what was happening when you were doing the writing and recording. Now, is this picture from when you were doing that album?
No, this is I was working on some demos with John Moyer from Disturbed, and that led to what came out of that session led to actually Fall Like Rain. So him and I had linked up because he lives here in Austin. So we we just talked about just working together and seeing what would come of it. And we just did some demos, and then I took some of them and reworked some of them, and that's that.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah. Tell me, let's talk a little bit about the tracks that are on this record. This is something that people can get physically, or is it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
You can get a CD. You can order directly from my store. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So then let's just chat just a little bit about some of your favorite tracks on here. I know that when I was just listening to it, there's one of the tracks I get there was a Tesla vibe that I get in there. I don't. What are some of the bands that you take from when you were doing this kind of music? You know what I'm saying,
right? Of course.
I don't mean
Yeah. So some of the influences. So, I've always been big on late '60s, '70s classic rock.
Great.
Obviously there's a lot of '80s glam metal influence in this as well. I take from everywhere. I know it's a pretty generic response, but my top 5 influences, I would say bands that I really had on heavy rotation were, Kiss, Zeppelin, Danger, Cinderella, and The Darkness. And I would say because, especially with Justin Hawkins, the way that he sang with a lot of falsetto stuff, that's kind of like what I would try to mimic a lot, especially when I was a kid. And it helped me develop that. And then obviously Kiss, my dad was a huge Kiss fan as well as I am. So, that then put all that stuff in a melting pot, and that's basically what I drew influence from. So everything in between, even pop artists and stuff like that as well. Absolutely. You hear like a rhythm over here, you hear like a beat over here, you hear a phrasing, and then you kind of just like, it just rumbles around in your head, and then you hear something else, and you're like, oh, what if I took these apart, put these together? And that's generally how it was created.
Wow. Outstanding. Now, when it comes down to, like you saying, your dad was into Kiss, is that a thing where do you talk about the music much? Is there something that he's like, yeah, I didn't like Kiss around this time, or is he pretty much just a Kiss fan?
Well, he kind of lost interest in them in the 80s. But we've talked about it a little bit, but my father definitely comes from it from a perspective of more of like a fan, and more of he knew all the media narratives around everything. Whereas, definitely as a kid and in my younger years, I was on the same page with him as that. But as I've been in the music industry and meeting a lot of behind the scenes people and people that are around that camp and all that stuff, you kind of understand what really happened and like what was fluff and what was storytelling and all that. So, it's kind of to circle back to the top of your question. There's certain things, because my dad's not a musician, they don't necessarily translate. But yes, we've talked about it. But he wanted to be a guitar player. He can play guitar, but it's not his thing.
I got you. Yeah, I didn't start until I was 36, so it was a lot of fun to finally be able to do that. And then when you learn to play and sing at the same time, then that's exciting. That was really cool.
Yeah.
So let's let me see if I get like Rock and Roll's a great tune that really, obviously that catches your ear.
What's crazy about that song is that was actually the quickest song to write.
Is that right?
So I'll just say a little story about that. So sure. I had the verse riff, and I had like this first verse, I had the first verse forever, right? And then like when the band, before I decided to do the Christian Shields band, well, it's Christian Shields, but you guys can call it Christian Shields band, or it belongs to you guys. You call it whatever you want. Sure. When I sat down to write it, after that last band ended, I just picked up a guitar, started playing it, and I played through that verse and that riff, and then I just went into a chorus riff off the top of my head, and I wrote "Rock and Roll Is All I Know." 9 to 5 is not for me, and then it just kind of wrote itself from there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Now, and it took me like maybe 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. and then short. And then when people hear that, they might go, oh, but like obviously you hear the production for the record.
Yeah.
That didn't take 5 minutes to make. That was
Right.
probably about 40 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
Per song.
Yeah.
But obviously then I went into the studio with Kevin Gutierrez, my producer, and we we really fleshed out the parts and did all the production and all that stuff and made it what it was. So the demo, the original acoustic demo, just me, whatever, was 5 minutes. But then there's another demo that, probably, and then some of the lyrics on the final cut are different than what was on the first cut.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Then I'll just run through there. If you have anything special you want to say about any of these, just go ahead. So it starts with Not This Time, then Rock and Roll, then Lie to Me, by the Strings, Can't Get Enough. Here Comes the Man. Tell me about that song, because I really enjoyed that one today.
So, see, being down, because I'm not originally from Texas. I'm from Warwick, Rhode Island, and I've been living in Texas. So, I've definitely heard a lot of Southern rock. And, people from time to time will always jab at me and say, can you write some country stuff? So that lick is kind of like a really slowed down country lick. And, very bluesy, especially with the slide guitar, which Marshall and Kevin worked out. Marshall Benson, my guitar player. And, I just had this lick and it just had a cool feel to it. And, I wanted to write something very like dark. And I remember I was sitting in the studio, like I didn't have lyrics for the song. I just had this riff on the demo, and it was me and Marshall Benson, my guitar player, was there. A studio engineer named Chad Rockwell was there. This is when I was working at a studio called Westfall here in Austin. It doesn't exist anymore. Okay. And then we had a friend, Bailey Motes, who was also there. And he's a great, really cool blues guitar player, slide guitar player. So while they're sitting there kind of like working on demo some of the music for it, I'm sitting in the back. And obviously around this time, this is probably 2017-ish. Yeah, it's 2017. Obviously, not to get political, but there's a lot of, political stuff, especially with Trump's first term, especially a lot of media narrative and all that stuff. So I just thought of like the lyric from the perspective of, politicians in general. It's about power and money and status. It's not necessarily about the people. So, I thought of what a cool way to kind of write this ambiguous song, kind of like almost from the perspective of like the old Wild West, where, you're kind of like, it's kind of like you picture the guys sitting around in the saloon playing cards, drinking. They're like, you kind of hear like, the lawn man's coming or whatever. That's kind of like what the whole vibe was.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, what a time that was. Wow. Those wild times. Yeah, here's the before I get right back to that, here is the band here.
Yes.
Now, is this all still the same band?
Yes. So on the left is Marshall Benson, my guitar player. Obviously me, Christian Shields. Second from right is Ram Gov on the drums. And then all the way to the right is Jake Allard on bass.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. So how did you come about meeting up with them?
Well, so when I was working at that, so when I met Marshall, I was working at that same studio, Westfall, as an engineer, and he was in a punk rock band called First Year Fight. And I was engineering, their record. I was engineering Marshall's guitar parts, just tracking it for him. And, I made a production suggestion, and he looked at me like I had 9 heads. And then he was decided at that moment that I was an idiot and he didn't like me. But, after he left the studio, I had many conversations with the guy that owned the studio, Anthony Santo, who was the head producer. And he's like, I think you need to work with that guy at some point. There's like, there's something there. And, Marshall's an amazing guitar player and all that stuff. And he was great in the punk rock band, but, it just felt like it wasn't, he wasn't fully using his skill set. And, he's got a classic rock background as well. I mean, you'd have to talk to him more about that. I don't want to speak for him, but definitely like our styles of guitar playing, because I know he's big into Steve Vai and stuff, but it meshes really well. And then, the first show we actually did was on TV here at a place in Austin because it was during COVID still, October 2020. It was 512 Studios Live on the CW28, and I didn't have a band, and I was asked to do it. So I asked who the best drummer in Austin was, and everybody recommended Rom. And, he's been with me ever since. He plays in other bands as well, but, that's how we met, as I was looking for that. And then, we met, and he's a cool guy, and we get along really well. And him and I together, obviously the other guys as well, but him and I really locked in on developing the live show and the pacing and all that stuff.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Like definitely have a cool feel. Like we have I never look at him when we play together live. I don't need to, we're tight. And then as far as Jake, so Jake actually, he's not quite the original bass player, but he's been there since essentially the beginning. So, again, with that TV show I put out, I needed a bass player as well. So I got Justin Cedillo. He's a really great bass player around here. He mostly plays with Alistair Green and stuff like that, blues guy. But Jake was actually at the very first show we did in the crowd as a fan, because his friend Sam was the guitar player in Faster Pussycat at the time. I don't know if he still is.
Oh yeah, Sam. Yeah.
Right. So the first show that I had did was we had opened for Faster Pussycat. That was the very first show I did with this project. So Jake was in the crowd as a fan. Well, we played a couple more shows in Austin, and Jake had showed up again because he actually was a legit fan of the band. But then, Justin had to go, do some, again, I want to speak for him, but, he basically had to leave the project. And we were looking for a bass player. And then I guess Marshall and Jake had been talking, and Marshall's like, well, Jake's a guitar player. What about him? If you can play guitar, you can play bass. It's rock and roll, not necessarily looking for a Victor Wooten type guy or whatever. But Jake is a very talented musician. He's a great composer. He mostly writes classical music. It's great. He likes to do film scoring and all that stuff. But Marshall said, what about this guy? And I talked to him, and then, the rest is history. And then he's been here as well. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting that we met under those circumstances where he was kind of like a fan first and then came in. And then, all these guys have been a big part. Obviously the intention when I started the band was not to do a solo project as an ego stroke. It's just like I kind of just got tired of the band thing. And, the democracy of a band, it's overrated. Yep. And, I wanted to be more of like the executive, not so much to be a control freak, but it's basically like, the executive that makes the decisions, all that stuff. Not that I don't take anybody's input, but,
correct.
For some people,
makes a good leader, right? I mean, that's
of course. For some people it works. For me, it doesn't. Obviously I do take their opinions and stuff like that. I listen and all that. If they don't want to do something, we won't do it. But generally, I appreciate they put the trust in me to make the right decisions to move things forward, and all that stuff. So that's pretty much our dynamic and how it works, and that's how
that's cool.
The whole thing got put together. So it's kind of grown bigger than just me. Whereas people now, even though it doesn't say Christian Shields Band in the logo, people will now say Christian Shields Band. And like I said, I'm not going to correct people, because this is for the fans and for the people that support me and Marshall and Jake and Rom. And I want them to feel like a part of it. And if that's, what I mean? I listen to them. If that's what they want to call it, then that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that with my band here, it's the kind of the same, that you just need somebody that's mainly steering the ship, so that you don't have to, worry about, well, what are we doing now? Who's in charge? You got to have somebody that steers the ship. Of course. And then it creates again, we can have a whole like really long conversation on pitfalls and human psychology and dealing with all that stuff. Definitely when I was in my early 20s or late teens, this is stuff I didn't know. This comes from experience. But, being a guy in my mid 30s, it's kind of like, you understand how people work, how everything, goes and all that. So, you definitely have to be a realist. You can't just live up in the clouds. But yes, you definitely need somebody to steer the ship. And I also try to make it easy on them as much as possible, even if I have to do a little bit more work, not only because it's my band, but also because if it gives me peace of mind. When they're happy and content and not stressed out, I'm not stressed out. That's the beauty of it. It is. It really is.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
Let's see. Now, tell me about. Well, you know what? Let me finish out talking about the record. All or Nothing. Raise 'em Up. I just was listening to that a few minutes ago. Well, not a few minutes ago, but before we did this. That's a great party tune. Great party tune.
Thank you.
Without You and Off the Track is the last song.
Yes.
10 tracks altogether.
Yes.
I really dig also, this is a 37-minute album. That's just, it's almost 38 minutes. But I love that. I tell people that a lot when they have these length albums, because that's what it used to be. And when you put it on vinyl, it's, you know, when Hysteria came out and all these other albums that were longer, it made the vinyl, the grooves were too thin and it started to get distorted. So, but there was a reason why record companies were good with leaving it at 35 to 38, minutes long. And it's because it's easy to listen to. You get done, you listen to it again.
Well, yeah, sure. I understand the formatting, and obviously we talk about the lack of attention span and all that stuff. And sure, I definitely appreciate records that are an hour plus long, but generally I'm not necessarily listening to something unless I'm in the car. And even then, if I get from point A to point B and then I get interrupted by something else like a podcast or news or something I want to listen to, I might not go back to it. But yeah, I understand, but it wasn't necessarily by, it wasn't a conscious decision. It was more or less, I let the songs, like Kevin and I, and, Marshall was involved in the record as well. We let the songs tell us what to do, didn't need to overcomplicate it. Didn't need to overthink it. Didn't need to write all these extra parts to show off, musicianship or whatever. I always say this, I don't write music for other musicians. I write music that I enjoy playing, I enjoy listening to, and that also the fans will as well,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, maybe if I sat down, I could write, some super complex pieces of music, and those are cool too. But, most people just want to put it in and crank it up to 10. That's it. They want to be able to get into it right away.
Right. And there's time to do those. There's time to play those. There's however, everything happens when it should, is what I always say.
Yes.
And then you did this. When was this live in Fayetteville deal that you guys did?
Oh, so that was done in September. So September we were doing a show, and we were playing a couple shows, and that was in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Jake wasn't present, but we had Justin come back and fill in for Jake.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep,
that's cool. Yeah, I think my
like I said, even though Justin's not in the band, he's still a member of the family. So if Jake, if Jake hasn't been able to make it, or if Ram or whatever, there's I always have guys on deck that could always fill in if need be.
Absolutely. Now I was also looking at some of these. This is something kind of cool. So were you a major part of this?
Well, we're friends. No, we were friends with those guys, and they invited us to play a show up there. So we did. One of the things that I try to do is I'm not, I treat shows more like events. So it doesn't necessarily I need to be the headliner or whatever. It's just that whatever makes sense. So sometimes people might go, an original band opening for a tribute band or a cover band. And it's no, I just think it makes sense because the fans there, they like the similar style of music. And to me, the show is more of an event than necessarily about, like I said, the ego thing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's cool. I have a friend of mine who did a Scorpions tribute band, and Iron Maiden, as a matter of fact, I think too.
Right.
So here's some other ones of your shows. This is is Jen? Is that a band from there, or is that somebody that you know?
No, that's a band from Nashville. I met her. I met her and her band for the first time that night.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that was just recently as well, there in September.
Yes.
How do you like playing there in Nashville? How was everything received?
It was cool. It was a small show, but it was the first time in the market. But I think it's definitely cool. It's a cool vibe. It was my first time playing there. I've been there before. And like I said, we hope to be back and hope to do more and bigger shows.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool influence and a lot of cool people down there in Nashville. People who you can talk to, and it's a great. It's obviously it's a great network. I mean, it's become such a huge network of people down there.
Of course,
all over that
and
area.
right, and there's definitely a lot of cover and tribute band scene there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's cool.
Yeah, and then I was also here's a Pretty Boy Floyd that you did. That was just this August.
Right. So we had done so in the springtime we did a tour with Trickster, Pretty Boy Floyd, and then Enough's Enough joined us on some dates of the So it was part of that run up there. So we were part of the third leg of the Spirit of '89 tour. So we did that, and then we did some more shows with them in Texas before we went out and did a couple of our own shows in the Midwest. Yeah.
Very cool. Spirit of '89 tour. That's wild. That is wild. Thinking about how long ago that was. But
it was definitely fun.
A great band. How are they sound these days? How's everything? There you go.
Great. Steve and PJ, they sound amazing on vocals together. They harmonize well. The band is tight. Great show. And at the end of each show, we would do a jam together, and those were a lot of fun.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Who's their drummer now? Is he
Ben Hens? Ben is funny.
Oh, is that right?
Ben's a great guy. He has the best jokes. Cool. He was always making us laugh. We'd be in the middle of having a serious conversation, and he'd come over and he would just say the best. It doesn't even have to be like something super like rude or whatever. He would just say like these one-liners, and it would just make the whole room crack up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Super great guy.
That's great. Now, I do have to ask you about this picture. I found this on Instagram, and the only reason that I bring it up is because I didn't know about this animal before my job at school. And you know what? It's on Instagram. People can see it, right?
Of course.
It's out there. So is this a capybara?
Yes.
I'm just like, that's the capybara he's hanging out with.
Yes. So I've there's a page that I follow on Instagram. Well, they kept coming up in my feed because I love animals, and everybody's got their exotic animal that they're really into. I have 2 cats, but I was there's a page called Dark Wings Wildlife, and she has these 2 capybaras named Pumpkin and Cheesecake, and they always have like a bunch of silly videos, and I thought it was funny. So I went to the Austin Zoo to hang out with them and feed them, and it was a lot of fun. They weren't really interested in being sociable. They were just interested in the food.
Well, I'm kind of sometimes like that. You want to talk about something? No, where's the pizza though? Is the pizza over there? Just get me some more pizza.
So, but they were super sweet and super kind and all that, and it's just I thought it was a fun thing because it's crazy to me. Cool. It's crazy to me how many people don't know what capybaras are, and they don't know they exist. And to me, it was just like, I mean, I've always known about them, but like, it was just like recently, it just kind of like became a thing where like, I'm really into them and learning about them and all that stuff. So it's just an aside thing.
Yeah. They are like, they're got like a girth to them, and also with that jawline and the way the head structure is it's just wild. I remember one of my students just mentioning them, and I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, what did you just say? It's just,
they're very laid back. They're not. They can be a little skittish, but again, those were those that they had here at the Austin Zoo. I think they got them when they were older, so they're not really that used to people. So they'll come up to people, but you got to be very slow. And of course, if you have food. But once they were done eating, they were like, all right, we're out of here. And then they just went back down into the water. Yeah.
Like that's about all I got. I got to run. Thank you for the food though, but I got to go. Oh shoot. That's great. Well, be sure to get out there folks and check out Fall Like Rain. When do you think you're going to have the next single out?
Well, I definitely got stuff in the can. I just haven't begun recording anything or whatever. Like at this point, doing things one at a time. I would like to probably do something probably beginning of next year, 2026, but we'll see. Just, things are a little slow right now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Just
everything happens when it should, is what I say.
So for right now, I mean, Fall Like Rain, it's still recent. Put it back out at the end of June. So I'm just saying we can keep promoting it, and everybody's learning about it now. It's seeming to have like a slow simmer. So hopefully it'll start really boiling over, so to speak. So just taking it day by day, and when I have something to announce, I'll announce it.
Well, definitely get out there and check it out, folks. I do have two more real quick questions. One of them is super quick, but before we go, but the first one is, you guys, one of the reasons I wanted to show these posters, it wasn't just like, oh, nice posters, Stu. It was just the fact that the one thing I need to start asking some of you younger artists coming into the rock scene, it's different. We're going through the first generation of rock stars, and they're either leaving us completely, or they're talking about retirement. Like I just talked about, oddly enough, in the same band, Lou Gramm is done touring, he said, after this year. And then Kelly Hansen is leaving Foreigner. So everything okay?
Yeah, sorry. Somebody was doing something outside the window.
Oh, that's not a problem. And so then you got Kelly Hansen, who's leaving Foreigner. He says, I'm not using the word retirement yet, but because I would think that there's more things to come from Hurricane at some point. But
maybe.
There's a lot of that happening. We just lost Ozzy. I just watched the film, this film. I'll show it again if you haven't seen it yet. No Escape from Now. It's a great. I thought it was a good film. I thought it was a good side of everything that was going on. But how do you approach that with some of these bands that you're talking to? Fast Pussycat, Enough's Enough, your Trickster. Is there anything that you're learning from those guys that's going to help you as you go along, or is there something that they're saying that also feeds into the logic that you gave me earlier on in the show?
Well, I think you can obviously learn from them about how the way things were done, and it's interesting to see how they're adapting to the new technologies. Back then, a lot of these bands had big teams of people behind them. Well, you don't necessarily have as big of a team, but you don't necessarily need it, because there's a lot of tools and things that you can do yourself. And especially with these, there's a lot of things. So you kind of can cut out some of the middlemen. And yeah, I understand that's kind of sad. Some people lose their job, but it's like, it also saves money, and, budgets don't necessarily have to be as big. Some people still want to operate that way, and that's fine. But I just think that the main thing to learn is you got to evolve with the times and adapt and try to overcome and find a way and just be consistent.
Right. Yeah. Do you think there's a lot of times, like, we do look at our phones and we're like, well, I could shoot a video with this thing. I could, whatever. However, there are, I go through it with graphic design, because there are graphic designers like myself. I'm not saying I'm not the end all be all. There's other graphic designers that are 10 times, 100 times better than me. But at the same time, there are people that own graphic programs. So there's a difference. So yeah, you could cut out certain middlemen, but then there are folks that can adapt themselves to being, well, I am the creative part of it though. You can shoot things with a phone, with a camera, but if you don't know how to look at something, it's not going to make for a very good video.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. It's not so much the tools are widely available, but I still think it takes imagination and creativity, to your point, to make it come together, because you can pro shot a video and then the pacing isn't correct, or the camera angles are just a little wonkadoo. And that's not to insult anybody, but just because everybody can and has the access now, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help you, I think, rise above all the noise out there. So I still think you need, like you said, you still need that creative touch. You still need that vision. I think that's very important.
Yeah. I've often talked to my son about his photography. I'm like, you have a good eye for it. I don't. But I know when I see it. Being an artist, I know when I see it. And I'm like, that picture grabs me. There's something about that angle that's great. You've got it. I don't yet. But I'm learning and I'm getting better. I take, different
of course,
shots now, and I'm like, oh, that's a better shot.
I mean, there's the cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but a good picture can say a lot more, and as well as a bad picture,
and it can leave you speechless I just have no words. It's too great. That's a great picture.
Yes.
It can do both. Before I let you go, I do have one more question. I've really enjoyed talking to you about this. There's got to be I got to have back on the show sometime. We'll talk some more about some of those things you were talking about.
Of course. We'll go more in depth next time.
That'd be awesome. Because it is the show is music and the human experience. So it is good to know those things because other people go through things, and if we talk about them, that there may be something that they can hook into. It is Halloween season. Now you did say, so I want to make this a real cool question for you. So even though you're not a movie guy, are there any movies, or is there a movie that you do watch around this time of year, or I'm going to give you the escape of a book. Do you ever read any scary books?
No, I mean, as a kid, I would read Goosebumps, but for definitely a Halloween movie, my go-to would be Hocus Pocus.
We were just talking about that last night. Do you feel the same way we do when we were talking about it last night? And we were like, but that Hocus Pocus 2, wow.
I actually didn't see Hocus Pocus 2.
Leave it that way.
I just, obviously because it takes place up in Massachusetts. So being from Rhode Island, it definitely takes me back to that time of year up there. Especially the colors of the leaves and the imagery of the town and all that stuff. Yeah. It's kind of like how the architecture, everything is up there. But it was something that as a kid, my brother, my sister, and I, and even with my mom and dad, we would always watch Hocus Pocus. I know there's like two camps. You get the Nightmare Before Christmas camp, and you get the Hocus Pocus camp. We were more of a Hocus Pocus camp. Not that I haven't seen the Nightmare Before Christmas, and not that I don't like it, but it was always Hocus Pocus with us. That's what we watched.
Yeah, I'm more that way too. I own Nightmare, but I still don't agree with it. I'm just like, I am not taking my kids to this movie. I'm like, I can't do that. It's a nasty film for children. I'm like, that's just the way I feel about it.
Hey,
I'm
like, Hey, I mean, I respect your opinion. That's what I said. But I'll just, I won't. I don't like to say anything negative about anything. I just, like I said,
I don't either. However, sometimes if we can look back on things, or if we can look at, again, what you were saying about the psychology of things, then I don't know. I think it leads. There are certain things that lead certain places, and you're like, okay, it's not like a kid made it.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tim Burton who,
right? You're
like, is dark-minded, and you're just like, there's nothing against him. I'm just saying, for children, that's like Polar Express. I feel the same way about it. That's a great family. Okay, children in peril, riding on a train with strange people they don't know, getting taken in the middle of the night. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no.
I haven't seen that one, but like I said, I'm gonna have to make a list because people will always recommend me movies and stuff, and it's just like, I don't know why. I mean, I would say, I don't know. I just don't really watch movies. I think it's because of sitting down for that long. I mean, I definitely have. It's just that sitting down for that long, it's like I gotta be doing something. So sometimes it just doesn't hold my interest, especially movies that are made as of late. They don't feel as creative. They feel more like hodgepodge of like a formulaic thing that's thrown together. And it's like, oh, I've seen this movie before.
Right. Yep.
Sometimes you just want to watch a good action movie like The Expendables or Predator and just be like, yeah, let's go.
Predator, man. What a great, the originals. Those
Yes.
were.
Could Predator be a Halloween movie?
Yeah. Oh, you know what I told somebody the other day? They made a suggestion of a movie, and they go, I don't know, is that horror? I go, anything that if I was in that situation and I wanted to shit myself, that's horror. So yeah, if I was in that case and I was like, yeah, no, that's horror. You know,
Gotcha,
which
I
for
agree.
some people could be a movie about cats. I don't know, if they're scared to death of cats. I mean, that could be a horror movie for them.
There probably is a movie about that. I would bet on it. You could probably find it.
There's definitely a scene in an old movie, either from the 60s or early 70s, where a woman is being chased by her cats. I think they were her cats, and they've turned on her, and she's going up this ladder that's like 20 feet high, and the step ladder, and all the cats are climbing the thing after her. And so yeah, there you go. Or The Birds. There's another one right there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those, unfortunately.
Yeah,
a little bit before my time.
Yeah. I don't know what the one is with the cats. I still don't know what movie that's in. Somebody can tell me out there. But
somebody will put it in the comments.
As the Birds, that's Alfred Hitchcock. So yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. Well, anyway, we'll have a great rest of the day, my friend. Thank you, Christian, for being with us today. And
thank you, Stu.
You got it. Everybody, like I said, go out there, check out Fall Like Rain. You can check it out on streaming. You can check it out on Spotify.
Let me do the plug. Let me do the plug of all the links.
Yes, please go for it.
I was going to say that too. So ChristianShields.net is the website. Facebook.com/Christian Shields Live. Instagram at Christian Shields Live. TikTok at Christian Shields Live. And X at C Shields Live. I'm on all platforms, all streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Deezer, Tidal, the internet. So just Google me. I will come up. Promise.
See, that's why you go ahead and say it. I love it. That's perfect. All right, my friend. Well, you have a great rest of the day. Everybody else, you have a great rest of the day. Remember, when you step out your door every day, you're in everybody else's world. They're not in yours. So act accordingly. Like, don't turn on your frickin' speakerphone in the middle of a frickin' restaurant. If you want to do video hellos with the grandkids or whatever, do that outside. Go take a piss. People in the bathroom don't give a shit if you're doing that. Just act accordingly. Don't be a jerk. Don't act a twat.
I love it. All right. Your advice.
Oh, man. All right. Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, people. Here we go.